Blog Talk Radio.
Namaste, everyone. Welcome to Nature of Reality Radio on July 27th, 2016. This is your host, Andrew Fisher, broadcasting Wednesdays from the suburbs of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, to expose the true and false nature of reality for what it is and what it is not. On the show today, I have someone who I got on short notice and was requested by my last guest, Candace Craw-Goldman. The guest is Milena Oliver-Powell. We will be going deeper into multidimensional consciousness, among other things, involving QHHT, ET contacts, Arcturian past, galactic world on the brink of war, etc., etc. And I believe this is Milena in the queue here, area code 512. I see you there. I will get you on and no later than 10 after the hour because I'm going to be doing the news first. I'm glad to have you on. I was able to speak to you a couple days before this show. Just so you know, I'll tell you now, since I'm sure you're listening, that I'll ask you to go into everything you talk to me over the phone. You can regurgitate that all over again when I let you on the air, but by all means, go into it in much greater detail because we got to do a 2-hour show here. So with that being said, let's get straight to the news, courtesy of Alex Jones and Company at InfoWars. And as always, whenever I do this, I always have to refresh the page to make sure I get the most up-to-date news stories here. So, give me a second here. Only a few more right clicks. All right. First article, Bill's Real DNC Love Story. CIA operative meets power-hungry girl. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, won't get fooled again. On Tuesday night at the Democrat Convention, Bill Clinton told a fantasy story. In the spring of 1971, I met a girl, he began, and then for the next 42 minutes, Clinton waltzed through a storybook portrayal of his marriage to Hillary Rodham Clinton. The reality is something entirely different here. The Clintons sabotage progressives they claim to support. The whole DNC is a farce. The leaks were coming out to show that there were plans to make sure Bernie Sanders did not get the votes and that Hillary did, and DNC Chairman Debbie Wasserman Schultz resigned amid that, and the DNC has been nothing short of a joke with riot police being there to keep Black Lives Matter protesters and such in check, and the Bernie Sanders supporters are turning against Hillary and showing support for Trump. Now that's a huge step in the right direction, I must say. And, well, Bill Clinton, he was a rapist, a fraud, and Hillary Clinton didn't really care that he cheated on her. She's just there to control him. Could care less that he committed adultery. She did. That's why she never showed any regret about staying with him after the Lewinsky scandal. Next article, video. Black Lives Matter hipster called tearing down ribbons supporting police. All lives are not being persecuted right now. Black lives are. A Black Lives Matter protester in New York defended his actions after he was videotaped tearing down blue ribbons meant to show community support for police. The guy's name is Stephen Varvaro. He was filmed in the Staten Island neighborhood of Castleton Corners, angrily taking down blue ribbons. Gotcha post when resident Steve Warona grabbed his phone and began filming. He was shouting Black Lives Matter. And, and Warona, the guy who was filming, replied, Blue Lives Save All Lies. Well, this Black Lives Matter hipster, he, maybe he's a little brainwashed or maybe he's an operative. Who knows? I don't know. Black Lives Matter, they're both operatives and brainwashed people. I was at a Patriot rally in the not-too-distant past down in Philadelphia near the federal court there, near Independence Mall, and the Black Lives Matter people were counter-protesting us, and I was trying to tell them, yo, guys, you got this all wrong. We are not white supremacists. We are not racist, and a lot of the Black Lives Matter folks were saying really mean things to us. I'm sure some of those were George Soros operatives, George Soros being a globalist who funds Black Lives Matter to a great extent, but a lot of those Black Lives Matter folks, we had a chance to speak to them one-on-one, and they did seem like brainwashed fools who were caught in a leftist agenda that is designed to divide and conquer people. So Hopefully, all those brainwashed fools in Black Lives Matter will wake up, and maybe someday Black Lives Matter will say, can't we all just get along, and will join us in the fight for liberty, and will acknowledge that all lives matter. Next article, video, Black Trump Patriot destroys violent communists. Trump voter triggers communist using bullhorn. Produced by capitalism. At a communist rally in Philadelphia, a Black Trump voter confronted violent communists who reportedly attacked him at a Planned Parenthood protest. Well, Planned Parenthood, a lot of folks there, they think they're doing good. I once was at Planned Parenthood back in 2006 when some girl that I knew, like at the time was my best friend's girl, was pregnant, didn't want to keep the baby, wanted to get an abortion, and I stood up for her choice for that, and I was allowed to come to Planned Parenthood with her to see the abortion because they thought I was a very good friend. And I saw a lot of the people at Planned Parenthood. They were very caring old women and such, but they do not realize that Planned Parenthood was created by Melinda Gates, Bill Gates' wife, as a eugenics front to cull the human population. Bill Gates, of course, being a vaccine enthusiast. I seriously doubt Bill Gates is stupid enough to not realize that vaccines are harmful. I'm sure he knows what he's doing. Is he under a contact control or something? Who knows? I don't know. But this is another case of leftist protesters getting what's coming to them by trying to confront Trump protesters who know what they're talking about. Well, hopefully sooner or later these leftists will get their act together and start acting normal. Our next, or actually I have to talk about this, it's just about the InfoWars, a 28-hour special broadcast. I guess that's something worth listening to if you're not accustomed to what's going on in the world. Well, I'm sure everybody who listens to my show by now would be accustomed to what's going on in the world because I cover a lot more than just what goes on in the world. But this 28-hour broadcast, definitely worth something listening to if you're a sheeple who needs to overcome your fears. Say what you want about Alex Jones scaring people. I think listening to him is a great way to overcome your fears. Next article, 1.65 million moms in Latin America could become infected with Zika. We think these projections may be pretty good for a location where Zika shows up and starts an epidemic. New estimates have shown that around 1.65 million women in Latin America could become infected with Zika while they are pregnant, with Brazil carrying the highest number of them all. This comes from new research from the University of Southampton, the United Kingdom, and the University of Notre Dame. So is Zika virus a virus created in the Plum Island Bioterror Lab or some other bioterror location that's government and New World Order controlled? Possibly, most likely. Lyme disease and AIDS certainly were. But Zika, I really haven't followed this all too much. I'm not really an expert on this. Heard a little bit about it here and there, covered it on previous shows when I do news segments, but it is pretty sad that it has to be in Latin America. Is that by design? I want to know. Were they released in Latin America more so than other places around the world for some specific reason? Is there any particular reason why it has to be Latin America? Well, if it is a globalist virus, there are reasons behind that. Again, I'm not one to be talking about this because I'm not an expert, but I'm just bringing it out there for people to make what they want of it. Next article, IRS launches investigation of Clinton Foundation. The lawmakers charge the Clinton Foundation is a lawless pay-to-play enterprise. IRS Commissioner John Koskinen referred congressional charges of corrupt Clinton Foundation pay-to-play activities to his tax agency's exempt operations officer investigation. The Daily Caller News Foundation has learned the request to investigate the Bill, Hillary, and Chelsea Clinton Foundation on charges of public corruption was made in a July 15th letter by 64 House Republicans to the IRS, FBI, and Federal Trade Commission. They charge the foundation is lawless. Yes, Hillary Clinton being treated like she's above the law by the FBI. I don't have to go into that in great detail. We all know what that's all about. Did she and her husband say, we're going to murder you and your wives and kids if you FBI agents don't stop investigating us? Is that understood? Well, you can't trust Hillary Clinton for nothing. She is an Illuminati Grand Dame. Fred Springmeier did expose that in his book, Bloodlines of the Illuminati. I believe she said that she was promoted to that position. And, of course, I've said it once. I'll say this again. I'll say it 100 times every time I bring up Hillary Clinton on my show, which I'm sure I'm going to be doing during news segments for weeks to come. In David Icke's Revelations of a Mother Goddess documentary in 1998, Arizona Wilder, a Illuminati mind-controlled slave of the, former mind-controlled slave of the Illuminati, who got to see humans shapeshift, political and corporate leaders shapeshift from human into reptilian form during Illuminati satanic rituals where she was used as a mother goddess energy source. She mentioned some of the names of people she saw, and she said, quote, "I saw Hillary Clinton before I knew she was Hillary Clinton." Pretty creepy, don't you think? All right, enough of that. I've babbled long enough. That's the end of the news. Milena Oliver-Powell, area 512, you're on the air. How you doing?
I am doing fantastic. Thank you for having me on your show.
I'm glad you were able to come on. I'm very glad that Candace recommended you. I knew after I listened to your little spiel and that phone call we had that this was going to be a great interview because this is my kind of stuff that I love talking about. A lot of people in the truth room that don't go into this kind of stuff, but I do, and I always will. And, like I said, I'm sure you were listening to me in the beginning, and I said I'd like you to talk about everything that you did on the phone with me. By all means, go into it in much greater detail. We've got a full 2-hour show to do. Got to go until 8 o'clock tonight, so 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern. So you got the floor. Please regurgitate everything you told me in that phone call, and please elaborate
Fantastic.
on things.
Okay, that's a lot, and I could easily fill 2 hours and then some. So yeah, I'll just start with Candace, my relationship with Candace. I met Candace at my brief 2 half days at a Dolores Cannon transformation conference in Arkansas. And of course, it was one of those completely synchronistic moments when my entire world as I knew it was about to shatter. So Candace and I booked some time and did some QHHT sessions, and that was at a point in my life when I was finally able and ready to start to uncover all of my childhood ET experiences, because I'd basically hidden them and, pushed them aside and just tried to get on with my life for 40 plus years. And when I met Candace and some other synchronistic things happened that we spoke about, that I will speak about, it all just kind of came to a tumultuous point. So there was no going back after that. So when working with Candace, we did one session, and she said, "Wow, I'm amazed at the detail and the information that was coming through." And a lot of that clarity that I had was because I'd already had a 20-plus year meditation practice. And so traveling through the realms of multidimensionality was not something that was completely foreign to me at that point. So we went back and we did another session a couple months later, and we talked a lot about Ascension, and I got a lot of information downloaded about that and how Earth is involved in that, all of that. And then through all of this, I've been developing, my energy awareness. And so I have 2 books. One is on the past childhood ET experiences. It's called Ancient Entanglements. That talks about all the way up through the 2 sessions with Candace, some things that happened that impacted my world. And then I had a quite unlikely session with a psychic that I never planned on having, where a message from the Arcturians, who said they want to be called the Arcturians in that session, and we'll get into that too, came and delivered a 15-minute message for me, and that's how the first book closes. So the second book that I'm working on now and will be out in mid-August, is called Living in the Light, Living as the Heart. And that is about all of the energy work and all the spirituality and all of the things I have done to help make myself more open and accessible to our multidimensional reality, which I believe everyone has that access. And from the work that I've done to develop it myself, there's a whole lot of ways that we can do that energetically. And within all of that, once you get to the higher dimensional realms, love is inherent in all of it. So the book is about energy work and opening the heart as a result of that. So that's everything I've got going at the moment, and I guess we should start in the beginning.
Yeah, got to unmute myself there. Yes, by all means, start in the beginning. Ancient Entanglements, your first book chronicling your childhood ET memories and 2 QHHT sessions that took you back to your ancient Arcturian past and a galactic world on the brink of war. That's the second paragraph here in the bio here I'm reading off of. So, yes, you got the floor. Elaborate on that in great detail.
Okay. Let's go. So I grew up in New York. My early childhood was in Brooklyn, and then we moved to Long Island when I was 9. Some of my memories that were from the Brook era were hazy, but they were all ET related. But they got very, very strong when we moved to Long Island. And that was from the age of 9 onwards, and I'd have very distinct happenings that when I had a few different things going on. When I'd be supposedly sleeping, I was either in a dream, which is completely obvious and different from when you're astral traveling, which would happen often, or when I had ET experiences, which were not like any of the others. Those would happen that I would awake in my bed being absolutely exhausted and had this smell in my nostrils and this dreaded feeling that, oh my gosh, what just happened? I knew something happened, and I had hazy memories of it, but I couldn't remember all of the details. I'd remember lights over the vegetable garden and being sucked up by my midsection, and I'd always have marks on my body and bruises and things like that, but I was never sure until I was given, and I say given because I easily could have had these things erased just like the other memories, but I was given 3 distinct memories to tell me what was going on. At least the third one was. So the first memory I have, and the first 2 were before the age of 9. So I think the first one was 7 or 8. I'm not positive. The first one, I was in a round ship. I was lying on a metal table, and it was as I was being examined. There were all sorts of, to the side, there were other tables, kind of like the numbers on the face of a clock around this metal room. There were creatures in the room. There were humans in the room, too, young children such as myself. And I was uncomfortable. I couldn't move. It was that smell again. It was cold. There were lights on me. And it was a terrifying, horrifying experience. But I'm not sure why that one came through very clearly and specifically when so many of my other memories were hazy. So I have details of the ship in my mind. It was rounded. I could see a lifted walkway with a steel bar or some kind of metal alloy bar around the back. But I had limited periphery because I was a limited sight in my periphery because I was on this table. So that was the first memory. The second memory I was given, I was taken to what looked like these beautiful, gorgeous rolling hills covered in grass, sunny day, and I could see that the outline of one of the hills was the same symmetry or same cover. It looked like it was a hill that was covering a ship. And I couldn't tell whether it was an illusion or if it was a real hill, but as we walked over this hill and we went down into the ship, I could see that it was definitely a more real, tangible experience than what it first looked like. So when I was in that, I was in the ship, I was allowed to, play around with things, and they were just showing me things. And I got the impression that I was being told that I'm a friend and that don't be afraid, we're here with you, and this is all good and this is all natural. And I also remember I wasn't buying it. I also remember, I don't know about this. This is all kind of crazy. The third memory is kind of where it all fell apart. And 40 years forward, it's where it fell, or maybe 35 years forward, it's where it fell apart too. The third memory, I was with 3 beings. So I was 9 for the third memory. I had one creature that was about my size, one that was taller, and the other that was a little shorter, and they were all rail thin. And I was taken to this black, soot, burned out planet. There were just ash everywhere and fire burning off in the distance. So off on the horizon, it was red and gold. And there were just like limbs of tree trunks, all black and cut off and burned off. And everything below me was covered in a layer of ash. And when we stepped further on the ground, there was like almost like ice on the stream in a wintertime when there's still water underneath. So you kind of crush through the ice and you're stepping into water, but it wasn't water. It was thick, gooey, oily sludge underneath it. And so that time, the smell was way worse than it usually was when I had similar experiences. And it was just, I could feel the the death and the destruction and the smell and all of it. It was just such a bleak, horrible place. And so then I was told, you are to stop this from happening on Earth. And I panicked. I said, I'm nine. What? I don't know what to do. So I freaked out. They had none of it. And so this is the first time I wasn't, made to go to sleep or anything like that. There was a crack, and I was in my bedroom, just wide awake, sitting there instantly. I was still wearing the smell, and I still had the residue of whatever all around me. That was the experience of it. So that's the memory that would take me forward, and I've since found 2 people that have had that exact same memory, which was kind of how this all became and uncovered. In addition to that, when I was in my early 20s, a friend and I were going to a party at a club on the South Shore of Long Island called the Oak Beach Inn. And the party that we wanted to go to was 24 hours earlier, but we didn't realize that. So we were driving down Ocean Parkway, screaming Billy Joel's Piano Man on the top of our lungs, which we hated, so we were being sarcastic. Not that we hated Billy Joel, but all of Long Island played them all the time. And we were in our 20s and way too cool for that. But something happened. So as we're going down the road, all of a sudden every hair on my body stood on end. And I went into this panic mode because something in my body had felt this before. So I start screaming at my friend, roll up the window, roll up the window, roll up the window. And she finally hears the panic in my voice, and she does. She rolls up the window, and then we saw, just as that happened, a tall, white, bony, thin, rail-thin creature on the side of the road. And it had an elongated head. It had elongated eye sockets that were almost rectangular, but not rectangular to the vertical sense, not wide. And on the side of its head were these round, raised, bony protrusions, almost, I call them in the size and shape of Princess Leia braids, but they didn't have the bumpy texture. They were just raised that way and then flat. And this creature was wearing this red, it looked like a tracksuit, a shiny tracksuit, which I thought was incredibly odd. So the creature takes a step towards the car, and it's holding what looks like just a regular white plastic oil funnel, and it tosses the contents of this funnel at the car. And the next thing you know, we're still going down the road screaming. I checked the clock, and it had gone from 11:02 to 11:03, so we didn't lose any time. But there was always this missing memory of what happened to that sparkly substance that came out of the funnel. It should have either hit the windshield, we should have saw it stream past us on the passenger side, it should have blown back in the creature's face. I had no idea. I just know that there's sparkly substance coming out of this funnel, and then we're still driving down the road. So there was always that split-second missing time. So all of this, still, even after that happened, the friend I was with would never, ever speak about it. It was way outside her, boundaries, her horizons. So she just shut down, didn't even acknowledge it, freaked out. That was it. I went home. I told my boyfriend about it, who soon became my fiance. He tried to call her. She wouldn't talk about it, get more details. That was it. It wasn't until 2011 where I read a Dolores Cannon book. I finally picked up my first ET book, and a woman in Long Beach, California, described the same creature. She had been going down a deserted beach road in the middle of a weeknight. So all the way on the other side of the country, 3,000 miles away, here's the woman describing the creature that I had seen. So she got regressed by Dolores Cannon. She found out she actually did have missing time. So, of course, I find out, I contact Dolores Cannon, and I get on her then 4-year waiting list. And I'm just like, okay, I don't want any other practitioner. I want Dolores. But even though I knew the chances were very difficult to even book her at that point because of her popularity. So things go on, and I'm just starting to write down my memories, starting to acknowledge them a little bit, starting to pull out all of the fear that I had associated with all of this. In the meantime, I am gung-ho on my spiritual practice. I am working with teachers and gurus and all of these things to go deep into the world of energetics, energy frequency, knowing the self. So my spiritual practice runs very deep because there's no ETs there, and I find safety in there. I get to work with the energy that I always knew should be all of ours, our natural state. I was trying to get that as a child. I was always trying to do magic and find that something else within, I was raised Catholic, within Holy Spirit, within the God source as spirit. And for me, that was energy. And that's how I manifested that. So I was going down that path in the meantime. So I'm trying to think what happened next. I think it was in 2014, I decide to, I'm at a meditation retreat actually in New York, and I visit my family, and I go back through Arkansas, and I stop at Dolores Cannon's Transformation Conference because it happened to be that weekend I was coming back. I was living in Austin, Texas at the time. So I'm hear some lectures. I'm online buying a book. And there, as I sit on the line wasn't moving. It was very slow. And I start opening this other book that was in front of me, and it's a UFO book. And other than Dolores Cannon's book that I read in 2011, I was still terrified. I did not want to know anything about UFOs or ETs. But here's a book. It looks hokey to me. I don't know. That's just me trying to live a normal life and shun all of that. And I opened this book, and my 9-year-old experience on the burned out planet was written in this book, as were so many of my other hazy memories. So I panicked. The book was The Forgotten Promise by Sherry Wilde, and basically my knees went out from underneath me and I couldn't move, and I kind of had a minor freak out right there online. I bought her book. I brought it back with me to my hotel, and it became my one goal. It was to meet and talk to Sherry Wilde, because here's a woman who shared my experience. And I honestly had to put her book down. I never got through it that night because it brought up too many memories. I had a car that, when I was 16, would just randomly stop anywhere, it felt like, and I'd be sitting on the side of the road for no apparent reason until the car felt like starting again. And it was the most frustrating experience because I'd just be there for hours worth of time. And, of course, my family had it looked at, and we tried to fix it, and they couldn't find anything wrong with it. And then finally we replaced the ignition module, which was a fortune, and it still kept happening, And so we just chalked it off as some crazy thing and, finally got a new car. Well, Sherry Wilde had the same thing happening. She was in contact with her ETs, and she found out that when her car would roll to a stop, she was, quote unquote, abducted, or, had a visitation at that point. And they told her that they took her during the day because it caused less fear and panic than when they did it at night. So at that point I shut the book and I said, that's it. You can't even go there anymore. So the next morning I stalk Sherry Wilde. I've never seen myself like that in my life. And I absolutely have to talk to this woman. So this poor lady is about to do a speech. I know what it's like. I've been in that position where you have to get up and talk in front of a lot of people. You need to be centered and calm and still and prepared. And I'm stalking this poor woman knowing better because I cannot help myself. Like, I need to talk to you. I have to talk to you. I have to find out what's going on. I've had all these memories. I've had all these same things happen. And Sherry grew up in Wisconsin, and she was older than me by at least 10 years, probably 15 years, I'm not sure. So that part was even more shocking. So Sherry is very nice, and I said, I'm sorry, I'll talk to you after your talk. So before Sherry's even off the stage, I am lined up at her book signing. Well, Candace Craw-Goldman, who is the founding person who founded Dolores Cannon's QHHT Practitioner Support Forum, she had gotten a message. Candace is incredibly intuitive and receptive. She had just gotten a little message saying, hey, I want to be the first one at Sherry's book signing. So here I am. She shows up. I'm already there. I'm already online waiting for her. And Candace thinks, that's odd. And then when Sherry comes off the stage and shows up, and I'm still a maniac at that point, and then the line for this book signing is just going on and on and on and on. It's getting longer and longer, and poor Sherry sees all these people and she can't talk to me. That's when I booked the session with Candace. So 2 months later, we went to all of it. We went back in time through QHHT, which is Dolores Cannon's Quantum Healing Hypnosis Technique, and it is powerful. It takes the practitioner takes the subject or the client back into the somnambulistic state of trance. Dolores has a whole induction to get you there. And being a meditator for so many years, I had gotten on Candace's website and heard her induction. I said, you know what? That's great, but please don't do that because it'll distract me from meditation. Let me get into a meditative state, and then you can take me where you need to take me. So we kind of triggered it just a little bit, but I got in deep and quickly. And so the first thing I see when I'm going back in time, because what happens is Candace and the QHHT practitioners ask you to go back to the most relevant lifetime of challenges that you may be having in this life. I'd gone in and prepared a huge list of questions of things I wanted answered about my childhood ET experiences. I also had just a number of questions about, some health challenges. And of course, I wanted to know what happened with the ET experience on the side of the beach road, which was the original one that I wanted to do QHHT for in the first place. I was hoping it would all go away. I was hoping there would be some rational explanation for it. And I should actually preface this by saying just once before I had gone back to my childhood with another regression therapist, and he was looking for any kind of movie or book or anything that I had seen or heard or read that would explain why I had memories. And he couldn't find anything. And so he said, you know what, I'm sorry, I don't feel like I'm qualified to work with you on this. Like, he just didn't know the protocol. If he couldn't find the thing that was causing the memories, what to do. So that was my one previous experience with the regression to help me get to the root of these memories, and it went nowhere. So I showed up at this session kind of hoping it would all go away, we'd find the root of it. But instead, as Candace takes me back through Dolores' method, I go back to an ancient world. And the scene that's unfolding before me is like a wonderful science fiction movie. So at this point in time, I know the states of meditation, like when your mind is pushed aside and you're in an exploration mode and you can explore consciousness, you're in receptivity. You are in a state of allowing things to show up, and then your brain is used as a processor to interpret them. So at this point, I see Star Wars movie in my mind, which is kind of over in the side, just hanging out watching. The mind comes in and starts protesting, like, no way, I don't want to do this, I don't want to see this, this isn't real, I can't do this, I can't go forward with this. But then, why even come to the point of doing QHHT? Why go into that regression if you don't want to see what's really there for you? Your mind, most of us live by our mind's whims all day long. We're always listening to what the mind wants, what the mind thinks, what the mind is feeling, what the emotions are feeling. And to go in that state of receptivity, you're putting that mind aside and you're letting something else higher guide you. So Candace had asked the higher self to take me to the life that was most important to understand what's been going on in my world now. So I kind of pushed the mind aside and I said, okay, let's do this. So immediately I am in a big hall, and it looks like a parliament building. It's what I determined to be some kind of galactic meeting center. There's dark halls there, and I'm quietly speaking to someone. The scene develops, and I move on and to my purpose for being there. And I am, at this point, Candace actually just asks me to describe my body. And I've very specifically put on this body. I'm an energy being. I can feel everything that's in this state, regressed state. I can still feel everything even better than I can hear it or see it. So what I see below me is almost a courtroom-looking room. There were benches. There were people divided up in three specific, or creatures divided up in three separate groups. There's a glass wall, and I'm kind of looking down through the glass into this, I call it a pit because it's below me, but it's a courtroom type room, and there are lots of people in there. So to the left, there are human-looking beings with long hair and white robes. In the center are these almost green, it's hard to describe their skin, gel-like big things that I could feel thousands of people behind them. Like people were watching this scene through them. And to the right were these, I don't know if they're draconian, reptilian, I don't have a name for them, but they were dark blue, smoky blue, dark blue creatures with horns and armor, and there were many of them that each was representing different territories. So, of course, I'm watching this going, oh my gosh, I'm in Star Wars. What is going on? But, once that mind is pushed aside, I know exactly what's going on in the room. And what has happened is that these creatures are, they're not being malevolent intentionally. It is their nature to take and conquer and use and just get what they want at any cost. And at this point, we are in a completely free will universe. This was apparently millions of years ago. I asked that question. And so they had to be stopped because they were hurting worlds and civilizations and other beings. And no one wanted to fight or go to war over this, but they didn't. The scene that I was dropped into was that we tried everything else. These creatures would not stop taking and obliterating and ruining and destroying and controlling. So, and that was their free will to do that, and we all understood that. But it was hurting others, so they had to be stopped. And the only course at the juncture in time was to go to war. And no one wanted it. And after we leave that scene, Candace guides me to the next most relevant scene. Well, before we leave that, I'll tell you what people were feeling, because that's what was so important. The human type, looking more like human as we know them, they were feeling upset, sadness, not remorse, but they were feeling like, oh gosh, we really don't want to do this, but we have to do this. And they had doubt. They had doubt that they could stop these other beings from rampaging everything. So, and then the green creatures in the middle, the gel type skin on them, they just had lots and lots of people. I just felt the heaviness of the energy of the thousands or millions of people that were watching through them. So then we move on, and war has been declared. And at that point, I see the blue smoke armor creatures, but there's also what we see now as typical reptilians of all different kinds. Brown and green bodies, not as many that were as clearly warriors with the horns and the armor. And not all of them wanted to go to war either. They just went along with what was happening. Everyone kind of reached this point and knew it was inevitable and went towards it. And so that began the fall of all of the energy of all of creation. We didn't go visit the entire war, but we did at that point go to the higher self and ask questions from the higher self's perspective. So, shall I keep going?
Yeah, well, just a quick question about this. This war that you're talking about, is this the Orion Wars, or is this some other war?
I know it as the Reptilian Wars. That's what it was shown to for me. I don't know. I'm assuming it affected well more than Orion. I don't know that term in particular. I don't know how much that affected. I can tell you that this war affected, and it was millions of years ago, I do know that, and it affected planets near and far, and it affected the vibration and all of creation. Basically, the high level of vibration that existed, because we can get into that in a couple of seconds, fell. It all changed, and that's why Ascension is so important, because when we get back into Ascension, we have that possibility of raising the entire frequency of all that exists. Don't know it in context to the specifics of the Orion War. It could be, don't know.
Yeah, but you say Orion was involved, so there's different names for different wars throughout the cosmos, and it seems like the Orion War is the one that, for whatever the reason, comes up in conversation the most among those that talk about galactic history. No surprise that you felt like you were in Star Wars. The Star Wars movies, they were actually, this is not me talking, this is George Cavazos talking, a lot of the Star Wars movies, the fight scenes were based on what would have appeared in the Orion Wars. So that leads me to think, this probably may have been the Orion Wars, but you just were given a different name. Yeah, most likely.
Right.
So, you say you wanted to continue going on. There's more stuff to go on from here?
Well, it's about the change, right? Because I was asked what planet I was from and what I look like and what my name was. And I spent some time sounding out a name for this being that I was, and the name was Thrush. And I'm like, Roosh, Roosh, Thrush. It was a vibrational sound that I had a little bit of a hard time processing. So the name was Thrush. I was an energy being that could put on a body and change. Now, recently, a lot more recent in my exploration, I was given a little poke to go read something and about the Lyrans, I think it was the Lyrans, which were supposed, and I didn't know this. This is all new information coming into me because really I haven't read a lot until more recently because I just wanted to keep all my memories and everything pristine. So once I had it all written down, I could almost purge it at that point and move on and start to learn how this all fit in. So basically, my body was this almost cyan color, and as it went up, it turned to gold and rust. And really, recently, I was prodded to look at a page on Lyrans, and they gave those three colors as the body color and type, and then I found out they were the precursors to the Arcturians, and I've been told multiple times through this whole journey that I come from the Arcturian lineage, which is another thing that I still have a hard time saying just because I've pushed all this stuff away for 40 plus years. So at that point, my planet that I came from was just this fizzy, high energy ball of creation energy. It was anything you wanted could be there. We fed off of energy. People could come join if they could raise their frequency and vibration to get within a certain bandwidth, and then we'd help them join. It was just this vibrant, effervescent, bubbly, energetic, creative place that seemed to be a little far away from where the war and that meeting place had begun. We cut to a point later when the regression goes back and says, well, where are you now? How's this affected your planet? And I said, it's blue. The frequency is blue, and it's a much more locked down frequency. At this point, I'm still interpreting so many things energetically because I'm still an energy being that can change, put on a body, whatever. So, and I think what was very interesting was that, even though this planet wasn't affected on a physical level, that a number of constraints had to be put in place to protect it. And because the vibration of all of creation changed and lowered itself, it changed it as well. So that's when we come to find out that it's actually Arcturus, which everyone says is a high vibrating planet, but from my experience, it's a lot lower than where all of creation was. So I find that all very interesting because in the background, before I even knew any of this, I was always trying to learn about energy, and through physics. I had a degree in biochemistry, which means you have to take a heck of a lot of physics classes and chemistry classes, and they were fascinating, and I thought I could really understand something or get something through that. And there is something. There's a physical component that supports ascension. So when I say all of the vibration of all of space fell, when you get to standing wave harmonics, and standing waves, well, let's just go very quickly. Matter, as we all know, is energy. Energy and matter are just, a collapsed wave probability, and that's how it comes into creation. Wave probability is through creating the probability that matter will come in or be in any time, space, point. So when you get into the wave frequency and you study wave frequencies, I know that was very quick and probably not very scientific, but that's really the basis of it without going into physics and chemistry and all that. When you get into standing waves look like they have the same height and depth, and they are completely consistent in their width. So most objects and people all give out a resonant frequency. And when you get into the wave harmonics of standing wave frequency, when using a tuning fork, right, you're trying to get something else in tune with that tuning fork, and they say it comes in resonance with it. But when you have two or more objects at a high-pitched, or it doesn't have to be high-pitched, standing wave frequency, energy can be brought into the system. And energy is created, and it raises the vibration and the frequency of the entire system. It raises the energy of the whole system. So that's how, an opera singer shatters a glass. The glass comes into harmonic resonance with its standing wave signature as that opera singer's tone. Energy is created, the glass shatters. So when you get to that point, if we are coming into a higher and higher vibration, through ascension, through Earth's ascension, or there's apparently 8 planets. We'll talk about that in a few minutes. When you get into raising the vibration through ascension, and it's coming into a higher vibratory signature that's already existing in the multidimensional states that are out there, that harmonic resonance can happen, and it'll raise the energy of the entire system. And it is possible, supposedly, we'll see, it's possible to bring the whole system back to that higher state, which is perhaps that higher state that I'd seen before the fall, before the war. So that's where ascension comes in, and that's where it's so critical, and that's why so many eyes are on Earth right now, supporting and helping give energy and guidance and all of that to support the ascension of Earth and all of its inhabitants, because we all go together. It's not going to take one person. We all have to do it.
Well, with that being said, that raises the question of, is there an ascension deception? Because in George Cavazos' recent interview with Alfred Weber, he talked about how there is a deception of sorts regarding what ascension is. Well, first of all, the name ascension is kind of, many people would say, a bad word to use, because we're not going up above anything. We're actually moving closer towards the point of infinite consciousness, which doesn't mean you're ascending over anything. However, the word sticks. Right. So it's, I guess, for that reason alone, it's
I call awakening.
Yes.
Yeah, but I like the word awakening because it's all that personal awakening. But yes, please keep going, because I don't know, I haven't heard this. So yes. Yeah,
but also there's a lot of talk about how are we supposed to ascend, because, well, okay, let me go down the list here of all those people who said we're going to ascend and it didn't happen. I mean, back in the early 90s, people like Greg Braden and even David Icke. I mean, David Icke said, 2012 is overblown and all that, but in the late 90s, he was actually saying that he subscribed to that thing that Greg Braden was talking about, how the Earth may start rotating in the opposite direction by the 2012 winter solstice, in conjunction with a great consciousness shift. And Ian Zell-Lungold, who talks a lot about the work of Carl Johann Kalimann, he also pushed the idea that Earth will start rotating in the opposite direction sometime by the 2012 winter solstice in conjunction with the consciousness shift. Well, that did not happen. And some other people, like I mentioned, George Kavassos, he did talk about how in December 2012 up until the spring equinox of 2013, we would, Earth would shatter its outer core like doomsday style, but that's okay because we are going to ascend into 5D. We're going to have crystalline bodies. We're going to be farting rainbows, and well, that didn't happen. And then people like Alex Collier and Tolek. Yeah, I'm not done here. There's a couple people more. Alex Collier and Tolek. Alex Collier in the mid-'90s, he was talking about like December 13th, 2013 would be the day that we ascend into 5D consciousness, where we would be what George Kavassos said we would be, but that didn't happen. And Tolek said January 2014 would be when that would happen, and that didn't happen. And now Ray Kusalandich, who I interviewed a while back, he said sometime in 2017 we're going to be having that time. And I'm thinking, oh, no, you're going to have egg in your face.
I still say no.
Yeah. So
I
why
say
are
no to all of that?
Why are all these people saying these things? Why isn't it happening?
Okay, so we're living, I don't know why they're saying them, but hey, it would be amazing if it can, because the potential is there now, right? I've been hearing we're moving through an energetic shift in the photon belt, blah, blah, blah. All that stuff may be true, and it's all supporting the directive. But ultimately, we live in a free will universe. We have to make the choice. That means not just a few of us. That means we as a collective have to make the choice, and then it can start to happen. And it's not just a choice. There's some work that has to go into this. And that's why I have this book that I'm working on, because this is the work that I've done to try and uncover my multidimensional nature and to raise my frequency and vibration. And it's not just me, and it's not just a few people. Everyone has to get on. I mean, yes, I'm assuming at some point it'll be the 100th monkey syndrome, where enough that it'll just become more well-known and other people will pick up on that in a more prophetic way, and it will change the course of things. But ultimately, you can't change it by talking about it. You have to do things to do it. You have to change your thought patterns. You have to change your habits. You have to grow your belief systems. If we have the entire world thinking that, well, I don't want to get political, but it's the easiest way to do it, that the current presidential candidates are going to make change for the better in this world, then we still have a lot of people who are probably not seeing the big picture and not seeing what's really going on and not understanding how to change their own consciousness. It's not going to happen automatically. If we're in a free will society, we have to make it happen. No one's going to rescue us. No one's going to do it for us. We have to do it ourselves. That's my take on it. I didn't grow in my abilities to work with energy by just saying I wanted to. Well, that's part of it. You have to believe you can, but you have to put in the work. It's like anyone who wants to play sports or learn a musical instrument. Some people are a little more talented when just out of the box due to their genetics or their past lives or their programming or their physiology or whatever it is. But anyone can become a great athlete, or anyone can become a great musician by putting in the work and putting in the practice. And I see awakening to our higher, and that's what I like to call it. You said, I'm tired of the word ascension because I think it's not completely. It has so many connotations tied to it now, and so many, like all the things you rattled off, that's all tied to it too. Really, it's what some of the spiritual traditions have been preaching and practicing for eons. It's awakening to look at the self. It's awakening to see where we're stuck and trapped. It's awakening to take down all the lower vibrational frequencies that we pick up in our childhood programming, or before that, when we come into this world programming. And it's really uncovering the fact that we are already multidimensional beings. We've just been shut down intentionally, and that's part of the war. The other part of the war that you don't see with the weapons, we've been programmed to believe certain things about ourselves. And when we can surpass that and start to change the paradigm on a personal, physical, tangible level, we will start to see other changes. From my perspective, we are multidimensional beings, but our biggest focus is in the third dimension. You can't just talk about 12th dimension if you can't access it you have to find a way to bring that into, or utilize your third dimensionality to uncover the higher realms. So you're still working through a mostly third dimensional experience. Even though we're multidimensional, we focus on the third. So we start to let the others seep in a little bit. We start to acknowledge things that are outside the norm. We start to practice ways to flow energy through our body, practice ways to feel energy, practice ways to go into meditation, and then go explore the other realms that are available to us through that state when the mind's pushed out of the way and you're just in receptivity. Then we can really start talking about ascension or awakening. So I think it's going to take a lot more work than, hey, let's do it in 2017. That's when it's automatically going to happen to everyone.
Yeah, with that said, I don't like putting dates on things because time is an illusion. It's not the when, it's the what. But however, E.T. contactee Bashar, he did make a statement about this when I was at the N5D City of Angels conference, Los Angeles in January 2014. I asked him, okay, so like, is there ever going to be the day where we'll have these crystalline bodies and all that, and be burping butterflies and farting rainbows and all that stuff? And he said, well, he seemed to have a very unique definition of like dimension and density. There's a lot of debate over whether dimension and density are two words for the same thing or whether they have different meanings. He seemed to hint that he believes there's a different meaning, but his definition of dimension is different from others. He said that we already are, and this was January 2014 when he said this. He said you already are in the fourth dimension because you exist in 3 dimensions of space and 1 dimension of time. He then said you could think of dimensions as a country and densities as different states within that country. He then said, you will remain in physicality for another 1,000 years. In that time, you will move in and out of different densities. And that statement flat out flies in the face of the idea that we will move into like a crystalline body structure in 2017 or any other date in the foreseeable future. Now, when I brought that up to Ray Kusalanich's attention and also Andromeda Council contactee Tolek's attention when I interviewed them, well, Ray Kusalanic was like, look, I have no comment about that. I'm just telling you what my ED contactees are telling me. And Tolek, he said he spoke to some woman. He wouldn't give me her name. He said he was not at liberty to give her name. But she said that thing about staying in physicality for another 1,000 years, that's just a biblical reference. But if it's just a biblical reference, why did a higher density dimensional entity like Bashar in this case say it if it's just biblical? Now, I didn't get to ask Tolek that, and I'm not going to give a direct answer. But now that I brought it to your attention, do you have any comments or statements about this?
Okay. First of all, I absolutely respect Bashar. I had seen some YouTube videos, and I thought, oh my gosh, this can't be real. And then I was out at a festival in California, and I went to see him, and I sat down on this grassy, surface, and the second Bashar came through Daryl, the vibration completely changed. I was, flat out gone into otherworldly dimensions. It just completely threw me into meditation, threw me into higher density, whatever he calls it, dimension density. I kind of use them interchangeably. Maybe you're saying I shouldn't, and that's probably wise. So I absolutely understood the energetic force and experience of Bashar coming through Daryl. And I actually got to ask Daryl about that vibration after because I don't remember most of what went on at that point. I heard the questions, but I went to a deeper place. I didn't retain any of it because I was in this other worldly state. So I asked Daryl about that, and he said, yeah, that vibration absolutely changes you, and it changes your reality and all of that. And so it's that vibrational state that I got so easily pulled into, Bashar, that I understand to be more of awakening and ascension. You're still in your third dimensional body. I don't think, maybe at some point we won't be. I don't know when and if that shift will happen. I have no idea. But it's that opening yourself to the multidimensionality that already exists for us. We can do this. We have access to those other realms as we're in third dimension. Our senses, and I talk about love in my forthcoming book, Love is our sixth sense because it's taking us towards that higher dimension, higher density, whatever, where it's inherent. It's already filled in and existing in everything. But so, yes, I honor whatever Bashar has to say, but I do want to talk about this crystalline body. Because I studied biochemistry, because I studied genetics, I hear words all the time from people saying, hey, we're going to go from a carbon-based body to a crystalline-based body. Well, what does that mean? Your carbon, when it turns crystalline, becomes a diamond. Your body would completely be dysfunctional if that was the case. If you take the carbon out of your body, you can't make proteins. Your body won't function. If you activate codons, which is another one that I've heard, to get more DNA, your body will make junk proteins that it can't process and will get toxic and, probably stop running at some point. So when people say things so vaguely like that, I want more information. I understand, and from my experience, I can see that we can, using this body, this vessel, to bring forth higher energy, you can make change on the third dimension, but you still have to work with the third dimension construct because that's what we're living in. So if I do all sorts of like little crystal ceremonies and things like that, where I can help change the frequency of something, and I've been shown wonderful effects on the third dimension when you apply the higher energetics through the third dimensional body. And this is what a forthcoming book will be about, like simple ways to help your surroundings. When you open multidimensionally, you work with all the dimensions. You don't leave behind your third dimensional body. I'm not going to leave behind my carbon-based body. Maybe at some point when we all, reach, well, as I spend a lot of time with teachers and gurus, and I call it samadhi, going into enlightenment, or maha samadhi, which is the ultimate enlightenment, when you completely merge with consciousness and merge back with the divine. Yeah, maybe it's crystalline. I don't know. I've been in my regression in an energy body, and you can still manifest anything you want up and down third dimension. You can still stay and work on the energetic realms and be in complete understanding of other beings and other situations that you come across. You can read them energetically. So when people say from carbon-based to crystalline-based, give me more information, because that makes no sense to me.
Yeah, it's very, very confusing, and it also gets into the whole ascension deceptions thing. I mean, a lot of people say, well, that's going to happen to us, but you can't expect it to happen instantaneously. It takes time, and that raises a question of what nature of ascension will be. But I don't think we need to talk about that any further. We've probably talked about that enough. So what else is there to discuss? Higher dimensional entities coming into our reality. How exactly would an entity do that? I mean, I've heard some people say that when a higher dimensional entity comes into our 3D or 4D reality, because many of us are in 4D now, they say, they would have to lower their vibration, but they say when they lower their vibration, they're, for all intents and purposes, harming themselves, so they can't do that for very long. Like the Peter Pan analogy. Peter Pan cannot go to planet Earth for very long because he doesn't age when he's in Neverland, but when he comes to Earth, he's going to start aging again. Well, likewise, if they lower their vibrational energy to come to us, they're going to start having problems of sorts because they've lowered their vibrational energy. Well, others say, well, no, that doesn't work like that. They're higher dimensional entities. They are more than capable of handling themselves when they lower their own vibration. So there's a little bit of a confusion on this debate here. Do you know of, and can you play the role of referee and maybe settle the debate as to how entities can
I don't know if I'll settle the debate, but I'll add my 2 cents. Higher dimensional entities, just like we do, no difference, have access to all the different densities. I don't know. I'll use the word density since that's what Bashar uses. I like that. I like Bashar, and I agree with all of his teachings. So yes, we have access to all the different densities. We have access to. We just have to learn how to use it. So just like us reaching up and accessing fifth dimension by going into, all my practice starts with meditation, go into meditation, and there's a stream that can go and access information. Some people call it the Akashic Records. I just call it a whole bunch of downloads. I see that working in opposite. There are higher dimensional beings can have access already to third dimension, and they have complete access to source consciousness. Creation or consciousness comes through creation by the way of energy. They have access to all of that. They come down, they put on a body or whatever it is, they morph into this form. It's just as easy to take that back up. The energy source is unlimited, absolutely unlimited. There's always more. It's infinite. So I can't imagine, and I don't know personally, but I can't imagine coming down and feeling the effects of it when you're in infinite creation. When you already have access to those higher realms, there already is more energy. You're closer to that creation energy. The higher up you go, the closer you get to the creative center of everything. So, yeah, I have to go with B. I have to go with no, it does not affect them. They don't like to. You don't want to go back into 2D and become a flat interpretation of your third dimensional existence. Not that we although I haven't tried to, I'm sure we can tune into what it feels like to be in second dimensional consciousness rather than what we're in now.
Oh, okay. And you mentioned the Akashic Records, about how it's download of information and all that. Now, since you've mentioned that, I think maybe I could ask you this question about whether I'm doing the right thing when I use Akashic Records readers as a source. Now, my number one source of information on this show by far, anybody who listens to my show and has been listening would know that Andrew Bartzis, Akashic Records reader, is my most frequently used source of information. And to back up my using of his source, of him as a source, I say, well, if Andrew Bartzis says it, then that means the Akashic Records say it. And if the Akashic Records say it, then it must be true, no questions asked. Well, unfortunately, for some reason, there's a lot of people that don't seem to resonate with that. Now, I will say that it goes out saying Akashic Records readers, they are prone to misspeaking. I mean, I have caught Andrew Bartzis doing that at least once. One time in particular, he was talking about how the Titanic and all those other ships were sailing across the ocean, and all the metal was being designed to go across the ocean was, among other things, designed to suppress our consciousness in negative ways, and he made reference to the Titanic sinking. Well, anybody who understands the conspiracy theory behind it would know that the Titanic was actually not unsinkable. It was supposed to sink, and it was a lie that it was unsinkable. It was a lie behind that. And it wasn't even the Titanic. It was actually the Olympic masquerading as the Titanic, and that gets into the whole insurance scam behind that. And when I commented on Andrew Bartzis' YouTube channel to mention, okay, did he, just say Olympic when he said Titanic, or is that just a conspiracy theory? Andrew Bartzis actually replied to me and said, hey, that's a very good catch. I'm very impressed. So, yes, Akashic Records readers, they can't go wrong, I say. They may misspeak by accident, but because they can access the Akashic Records, their information source is like the best ever. Now, am I being biased when I say that, or do you think, no, I definitely know what I'm talking about when I say use them as your number one source of info?
So I believe we all have access to any kind of information we want at any particular moment, at any point in time. I have never gone to a library and seen it called the Akashic Records. I can just go up dimensionally and get information, and the source has been true, or it has been seemingly true. So what I did see when I was actually on my second exploration with Candace craw-goldman, our second QHHT session was a little different than the first. I thought I was going to go back and see a whole bunch of, answer a whole bunch of questions that I didn't get answered in the first session, but that didn't happen. What happened was that she had some kind of what she thought was a portal in her backyard. And I'd just been out in it, and it didn't feel energetically like that at all. It felt like some weird magnetic thing. So we had gone up, and I had seen that it's a craft, and it was a magnetic docking station for this craft, on and on and on. But anyway, we start getting into the history of the area. So what we saw when we went up is that she was asking questions, and she asked about a specific place, and the answer changed over the course of time. I had to focus on what particular time period, even though everyone says time does not exist, things had happened linearly. So I had to focus on what time period to get a distinct answer. I couldn't, if I just went up and viewed it, the answer kept changing, which was completely unlike anything else. Every time I'd gone up into multidimensional consciousness, before I even finished asking the question, the answer is right there. So when you're tapped into that, I believe it's a constant. He was a psychologist and a philosopher, and apparently a self-realized enlightened being named David R. Hawkins, who lived in Sedona and just passed a few years ago, who basically had a scale of consciousness, and it went from 0 to 1,000, and it was all about, where on the scale of consciousness, 1,000 being the highest, the total Maha Samadhi merging into consciousness or conscious awareness, you're actually gone and merged in was at 1,000. 0 was the lowest possible anything existed, and I think most of humanity and life were in the 190 to 210 range. And he developed this scale through, I don't know how he started doing it, but he actually developed what was in the scale through muscle testing. And different people would go in and ask the consciousness level of specific events or scenarios or people, like what was the BP oil spill? Oh, it was 145. Different people would go in and gauge the consciousness level of that. So I understood it to be just like the Akashic Records, that when there is an absolute, can gauge things from, where everything that happened in history has gone on, has happened, has, experienced. But then people say, well, there are different timelines, there are different probabilities. That's all true, but I think when we access those things, we're accessing the realm of the experience we have created, the co-creation we are all in. There's an Akashic record for that. There's probably another record for a multiple reality or a multiple universes or something like that, because it's always been so definite and so defining when, you ask the question and the answer's there. It's right there. And multiple people having that same answer come through. So I say, yeah, I think you can count on it. From my personal experiences, it's something to be relied upon.
Yes, I'm looking now, and I think I'll use your book here as a guide for some of the rest of this interview here. Just looking at the chapters here. Chapter 1, Body as Your Multidimensional Vessel. Now, before we get into what you mean by that, I need to, how about a little agree to disagree question? Lily Earthling has caused a little bit of a controversy with her claim that we are the cream of the crop in regards to what we're trying to accomplish through our consciousness expansion compared to all the other higher dimensional entities above us. And the reason she says that is because you can think of us 12th graders, because we have the hardest way. It's the hardest for us to get out of the lower density level that we are in to ascend, while all the other entities above us, they have it easier because they are higher consciousness, so they are like the kindergartners on the block. Now, many people would hear that and say, well, that's a ridiculous way of looking at it. That makes absolutely no sense. So just for the hell of it, I need to ask you, do you agree or disagree with that?
In the eyes of all of the creatures that I've interacted with, we're all equal. There's no higher or lower. There's no greater or lesser. There's no, there could be harder, and perhaps we've chosen a harder route, but we all volunteered to be here. And all of us came from those other realms. I don't think there's a person on the planet who doesn't have some kind of other race DNA that have come in with the specific choice to be here to change. What I understand is that the highest amount of change can happen when you're in 3D bodies or third density bodies. I was say 3D bodies. And it's harder to do that, but that doesn't make us higher, the cream of the crop, none of that. When we come here, obviously we're in a stage of forgetfulness. We've got an entire planet that's 98%, I don't know, ridiculous number, engaged in fighting and wars and conflict and not living in harmony whatsoever. The worlds that I experienced outside of this one were not like that in the least. Yes, I went back to a place of war because it was a point that was so unlike any other that had ever existed before that or after that. When asked about this conflict, the answer was, there's never, ever been something like this in history before. We're a peaceful, free will universe. So to say we're the cream of the crop, knowing how we've used our time here on Earth, I can't agree with that. We haven't used it to its fullest. It's taken me 40 years even to acknowledge, I've been doing this work for a long time. It's taken me 40 years to even start to feel the peace and the love, because we come in and we just forget everything we know. We forget. I had an experience with, do you know who Teal Swan is? She's an internet phenomenon. She's a spiritual catalyst.
She got married, Teal Swan. I'm going to be seeing her at a conference in Philadelphia that's coming up in September that I'll be not going to a workshop, but I'll be there.
She's a very powerful energy worker, and she's an intuit, and she's definitely got some amazing qualities. That has been my personal experience with her. Once again, I saw videos, and I want to, I can't make any, I don't like to use the word judgment, but I can't make any claims about anyone unless I've experienced them myself personally. So I got this little random download of information like, hey, she's coming to Austin where I was living. I think you're supposed to. I ended up having to go through this process. I ended up helping, and I got to meet her the next day. And she went right to, this. I didn't say a word. She went right to this biggest issue that was going on in my life right now. She energetically took me back to, she was just creating a dark energy so I would see what I was missing in this lifetime. So she worked on my third chakra area, did this big spiral, took me back. All of a sudden, I was being born again, and I was crying and losing it because everything that I had known, the abundance, the love, the fullness, the energy, the peace, all disappeared the second I was born into this body and came through. And it was a very real, tangible experience. I wasn't regressed. I was just holding her hands, feeling and seeing all at the same time this experience of that loss of that perfection that we all lived in. And coming here, we forget all of that. We lose all of that. So, yes, we could be here trying to overcome whatever problem, challenge we came here to do. A lot of us, like me, I've been getting messages from the time I was 18. Hey, you're not doing what you came here to do. Random strangers would just walk up to me on the street and go, I have a message from your guides. Why aren't you doing what you came here to do? Why aren't you, on and on and on, the same message in a multitude of ways, all the way up through this past January. I was still getting it. So we don't use our opportunity. So to say we're the cream of the crop, hey, if we were all here doing our work and doing whatever we chose to do, coming into third dimension, which is the hardest, then I'd say, yeah, great, we're awesome. But you know what? We have a long way to go. But no one in the galaxy, no one in the universe, no one sees us as any different than themselves. No one thinks of us as lesser. No one thinks of humans as greater. It's all just choices. It's all free will, and it's all just choices. We make the choices.
Okay, and the body as your multidimensional vessel. Now, why would you use the word multi instead of saying your body as your 3D vessel or your 4D, for those that are lucky enough to be in 4D? Why use the word multidimensional and not put a number on it?
Well, through my personal experiences and through some teachers and some wonderful people that I've had sessions or experiences with, we can traverse the dimensions in this body. Ultimately, we are all made of source consciousness. Source, God, force, whatever you want to call it. I call it the divine. I call it a number of things. We often get close to this by living as the quote-unquote higher self, which, is closer to source consciousness. We can create whatever we want. I've had it gone up and taken me up to, they have names for the levels and the dimensions we went to. A gentleman named Michael Ghilardi in Sedona, a fantastic energy worker, and he does these soul birthing sessions. He says he takes you to the 8th and the 13th. And the experiences in each one of them are completely different. One is where, creation is coming into form and you're seeing little pinpoints of light and just little triangular shapes, and you're feeling the peace and bliss of all of it. If you're going into, I don't know which realm, you can go find the Akashic Records, but you can go up and find it. In each one of these experiences, we are just opening ourselves to what we already are. We're made of source. Our higher self is living much closer to that than our fogged over third dimensional form, where we live in worries and traumas and we relive the same energetic imprints we've picked up or been programmed with. Some of us have been programmed with heavier ones than others since the day of birth. So I say multidimensional because there are no limits. In an infinite universe where absolutely everything is possible, plausible, and probable, we can experience whatever we need to or want to, and we just have to find ways to get there. And that's kind of what this is. It's our natural state, and this book is about uncovering our multidimensionality. We keep ourselves stuck. We keep ourselves stuck with limited belief systems. We keep ourselves stuck with limited, I call them boundary horizons. Oh, I'll believe this can happen, but I won't believe that can happen. We keep ourselves stuck reliving our energetic traumas where, mom didn't give us our food when we wanted it, so we have some abandonment issues, or someone doesn't take care of us issues, or food issues. So we just get so wrapped up in the energetics of reality, we just have to release all of that to see that we come from our multidimensional nature. We are not any different than other than we have physical bodies, and any of the creatures and beings that traverse the dimensions a lot more easily than us. We just haven't been shown, and we don't believe we can do it. So there's a whole process that I kind of describe in this book that I've been working with. I don't have the end all. I'm just going through all of the steps that I've taken and all of the things that I've come across to help me go deeper into my multidimensionality. And when that happens, I am more claircognizant. I know things all the time. I am more energetically sensitive. My energetic empathic nature has grown. I can see, what someone's thinking perhaps about a certain situation and help bridge that gap and help them in their healing process to go down that road. So when you're more open, more comes through. So that's why I say we all have that we already have multidimensionality. We just have to uncover it and let it flow into our lives without question all the time. I have a friend who is an extremely gifted psychic. He's been used by the Coast Guard and the police departments to find missing people. He's been used successfully to uncover some history of certain things and items. He's just an amazing, just has access to a whole lot of different realms. And the thing that I find most fascinating and interesting about him, and his name is Gareth Pendragon, if anyone wants to seek out a really great psychic, he, speaking with him, you think, oh my gosh, he's not even living in this world. he's a very intelligent man. He can speak at lectures. He's on the radio and does radio shows about what he does. He does lectures at universities about what he does. But when you're just in conversation with him, dragons and mermaids and the latest science fantasy movie are all just as real as the food he's eating on the plate in front of him as you're talking about these things. There's no delineation saying this is real, this isn't real, this is fantasy, this belongs in this category. He's just completely open to all of it in a very childlike nature. And I've learned so much about that from spending time with him, because once you acknowledge that you don't know or that anything is possible, then it does become possible. Then you have access to a whole lot more than me sitting in my life going, okay, well, I know my ET experiences are real, but I really don't want to explore or do anything because I'm in fear of them. I'm in fear that they'll come through again, so I don't want to explore anything else. I want to do it in my own very little safe way. When you get your mind out of it and stop living in fear and stop saying, oh, I'll explore, but I'll only do it this way, and you open yourself up to the entirety of any possibility, you're going to do this work a lot quicker, and you're going to discover your own multidimensionality a lot quicker.
Well, yeah, but there are those, especially the sheeple among us, who would say that that's a very bad idea, because if you try getting all spiritual and you start getting all high-level consciousness and start exposing conspiracies and start exposing ET cover-ups and start exposing the nature of reality, you are going to, for all intents and purposes, have to live your life like a convicted felon who can't do anything because they have a criminal record. You don't have a criminal record, but you can't do anything because, well, nobody's going to hire you, recruit you, want to be with you because you're talking about all kinds of crazy things and doing things that on this prison planet known as Earth that you can't do, Jax. So for those people that insist you got to be a slave in order to be successful, so I think you should be a slave, are you going to flat out tell them, look, I think if you don't want to give up, like sacrifice luxuries and conveniences to attend higher consciousness, then you're a wussy and you should be ashamed of yourself? Or are you going to tell them, no, if you want to be a slave, that's okay, I'm not going to call you a wussy, but I still think you're making a bad choice because, well, if you realize you're on a prison planet, then it is in your best interest to make sacrifices to get out of the prison and attain our consciousness. What's your take on that debate?
Okay, my take is very personal because I understand this completely. I grew up in a very strict, sheeple type of family where, I knew that crazy things were going on with me at night, that they kept going, oh, it's nothing. Don't worry. It's just a bad dream. And I'm like, no, there are things happening. And they just did not want to understand. So in lieu of saving myself years of, whatever they would do to me to try and convince me otherwise, when I knew perfectly well what was really happening to me, I just hid it all away. And I just tried to do the best I could to fit into society and be that corporate person that I knew I was supposed to be to survive in my family and survive in this world. And you know what? It's a completely unsettling place to be. If you're living in a way and a means that is completely going against what you know and what you believe, it's going to manifest harder, more and more and more until you get your wake-up call, until the lessons happen. For me, it started to take a toll on my health. My body just made everything toxic. The world I was living in, working a corporate job, hiding this stuff away, was toxic to me. I ended up working in a toxic building. My body had a huge immune response, so it started attacking all the healthy things I was doing. I was eating so healthy, and I never smoked or drank or did drugs or anything like that. So my organic, certain kinds of foods were making me toxic. So what happens is that conflict lives inside of you. So I know it's a personal process. And I was going to say this, I know we discussed this on Sunday when we spoke briefly. My first book I put out with a pen name, Oliver, because I was in a corporate situation. I had a Fortune 100 client. I had the agency that I work for's biggest account, and I couldn't be taken I had to be taken seriously. I knew the stigma that came along with, oh, she's an ET contactee. And I wasn't willing to give up my life at that point. I still was in, ultimately in the parental programming of get a job and survive and tons of survival issues and all of that. But at some point, you just can't do that anymore. So when it becomes, that's not your truth. So I think waking up and awakening is a personal process for everyone. I was given enough in my childhood that I should have woken up a lot sooner than I did. I was in fear. I was frightened of like my childhood aggressors coming back. I was frightened that my family would reject me, all of those things. So while I would now say to everyone, please stand by your truth, I understand the difficulty of it. But at some point, you're either going to maintain the misery in your life and maintain being in a place or a job or a situation that is not resonant with your vibration, and you're going to be clawing at the walls to get out, or something like getting sick, like I did, will take you out, or, the crazy chain of events, synchronistic, amazing synchronicities that took me to the place of starting to uncover all of this stuff and deal with it and see that I shouldn't be in fear of it, and that it's something I should have been embracing a long time ago, because the second part of my life would have been a lot different than it was. So, yeah, I get it, but ultimately you're going to have to wake up. It's going to come smack you over the head. I mean, I know people who like being in their misery, and throughout their lives, they just don't want to make any changes. And there are people that I'm very, very close to. They're like, help me, I don't know what to do. And then you try and make suggestions, but they don't want to do any of them. They just want to keep pursuing the misery. So that's their choice. And that's what I see with that is that the lessons just keep coming harder and harder until you do believe that it's time to make some changes, until you see and recognize that there is something more for all of us. So, yeah, I think, as everyone says, we're going through energetic shifts. There's so much darkness happening on the planet, but at the same point, so many people are starting to see things they never saw before. They're starting to wake up saying, oh my gosh, we are, I think it was just a podcast I just heard. Someone said, oh yeah, now like everything that used to be a conspiracy theory, people are finding out it's real. So I think a whole world is starting to awaken and see that the reality of the way they thought things were may not be exactly that anymore, and they're starting to question. So I believe we're in a process of awakening, and I believe everyone should accelerate. Like once I jumped on board, yes, I'm doing everything I can to accelerate, but I know what it takes to get over that hurdle. So, yeah, I hope everyone needs to get over that hurdle. Everyone needs to get over that hurdle quickly, and I hope they do. I hope they do it a lot quicker than I did.
Thank you for giving your 2 cents on that. Interesting thing, Chapter 5 of your book, The Mind, Both Friend and Foe. Now, this is very interesting because people like David Icke have said they want control of our minds. They got control of our minds. They control us to a great extent. And George Kavassilis has often said, I choose not to use the pineal gland, the third eye. I go with the heart, because the third eye, I mean, it's got a lot of cool traits and all. You can have a very interesting experience if you use your third eye, but I still would not want to use it because it's in the head, which is in the mind, and they want control of our minds. So if you use the third eye, you're making yourself an easier target. Therefore, I think it is best to go with the heart at all costs. Now, like I said, I think maybe he's missing out on all the fun there, because there's a lot of things you can do with the third eye that would add variety to your life. And I've also criticized George Kavassilis, even though I respect him, when he says, like, I don't use chakras because I think that's all part of the Matrix programming. Well, okay, if you can go with the heart and not get bored, more power to you, but you're still missing out on a lot of fun and variety and spice of life by not using the different chakras. So what's the fun in that? So this whole debate over whether or not you should use the mind, the third eye, and all that, what do you have to say about it?
Okay. I think they're both integral, and they both have specific uses. I agree. The mind makes a million decisions every day that probably not in our best interest. Oh, I like this. Oh, I don't like this. Oh, I'll do this. Oh, I don't. I feel this way. I don't feel that way. I mean, I think really we need to reside past the whims of the mind. The mind can be our biggest, like I say, foe or antagonist. I think I changed that to antagonist because it will take us down any random dark alley it wants, and we'll follow it most of the time until we get control of the mind. Once we understand what's going on, we can use it to be our biggest tool and help guide us to change our belief systems and to make positive change. So depending upon what you've done with the mind, it's both. You can use it, great, and you cannot use it, even better. But getting control of it is the first part. Most people don't even realize that they can be their higher self, the awakening state can use the mind for positive or negative. A lot of people are just trapped in its own trappings and let the mind rule it. So I get where he says the mind, but the pineal gland is not the mind. The pineal gland is an access. I see it as an energetic access point, just like the heart. They have different vibratory expressions. I believe they can take you, like you said, on all those fun journeys. Most of the fun journeys I go into are through the pineal gland. And I know it takes a lot more for people to get in touch with their heart energy. Everyone is looking for love. Everyone wants to feel love. All the New Age teachers are saying, yes, this is the way to live. Live is the heart, not the mind. But most of us can't find that. Most of us can't find heart resonance as a signature of energy that we can put out all the time, every time. We have to get past the trappings of the mind to even listen to the heart, to even access the heart. We have to get past all the traumas to the heart and the expectations of the heart. When we are in childhood, I mean, I have a friend who, gosh, it's such a tragic story. I worked in the music business when I was in my 20s. And through the years, one of the first bands I ever worked on, and the singer of that band ended up at my house last year. He had tried, we'd only been in touch on the internet every 5 or 10 years, whatever, but it just so happened that he had a new record come out, and it was fantastic, and I knew that he had nothing going on with it, and I said, hey, maybe I can help you with some of your publishing. Well, the next thing I know, he had tried to commit suicide, and he had needed a place to stay, and I said, well, I can definitely give you a place to stay, a safe place for a few weeks. I didn't know the part that he'd been heavily addicted to drugs for 37 years. So when he shows up at my house, oh my gosh, this is not going to work. You have to go to rehab, all this stuff. But in finding with his issues, right, this is someone who wanted love desperately from his family. That's all he ever wanted. It's something he never, ever had. He instead had a mother who had him when she was a teenager. She put drugs in his bottle to keep him from waking up as she went out to hang out with her friends in the middle of the night. So he had abandonment issues and love issues and all of that. And that is the crux of all of our challenges. Like, I give you that example because it's so extreme and severe. He would wake up in the middle of the night and want to be taken care of, and there was no one to take care of him. There was no love. There was no one to take care of him. He was all alone, felt abandoned. So his entire life, he was recreating that pattern, trying to get love from all these different women, trying to use drugs to soothe his pain. And those are the kind of things that keep us from being in our heart. That's what we think love is. We think love is someone taking care of us. We think love is we wake up in the middle of the night, someone being there for us. And so we equate all of that with love. Really, that's not it. Love is completely inherent in the higher vibrational experiences I've had. It's been there in all of them. So we equate all of these other things as love. So when spiritual teachers say, oh, no, I live in the heart, it takes so much work to get past all the hurt, all the broken family relationships, all the past spouses and husbands and boyfriends and girlfriends that we equate with love. So much misalignment with what we think love is. Love is just unconditional joy and unconditional consciousness and unconditional bliss that we experience when we are our multidimensional selves, when we're in our higher dimensional frequencies of our multidimensional body. Love is inherent. So we spend all our time trying to get there. So if someone says, oh, I'm living as my heart, well, if that's true, that's amazing. That's an amazing accomplishment, because that means they have used the chakras to clear out their energetic imprints that are keeping them from resonating as the heart. That means they've used their pineal gland to experience multidimensional experiences in multidimensional realms and higher density realms, so they understand what the love vibration truly is. Yes, we can all live as that heart. We just have a lot of work to do to get there. Some spiritual teachers just throw it out there going, yeah, I'm living in my heart because I feel compassion for this poor dog that just got slaughtered by some owner that didn't want him and said, oh, take him back, put him down because I'm moving and I can't keep him. Yeah, we're all going to feel that compassion. That's not unconditional love. So while I think we all should live from the heart, it makes a lot better decisions when we're in the heart. We're not going to be in war. When we can be on that level of heart in communion, in entrainment, in compassion with everyone around us, we're not going to fight. We're not going to kill each other. We're not even going to disagree. We're going to be in that complete space where we see all perspectives and understand it from the heart. So yeah, I agree. Be in the heart, better than following the whims of the mind. But just getting there is some work. We can't just throw it out there. It's some work. And when I get into that, go ahead.
All right. Well, I thought you were done, so finish up, and then I will.
No,
go to the
that's
subject.
all good.
Oh, really? Okay. I wanted to get into the law of attraction because you readdressed that issue, and that's in one of your chapters, and that's something that. All right, well, actually, before we do that, there's a caller in the queue. They have a question mark next to them, so I think I better take this call ASAP. Okay. Area code 830, you are on the air. What's your name, where you're from, what's your question? Oh, never mind, they dropped. Okay, maybe they were just trying to listen. But anyway, with that being said, law of attraction, very debatable subject as to how it works. I mean, a lot of people, they want to use law of attraction, and they think they're doing everything right, but they don't, attain what they want, and in many cases, it's because they have some sort of a subliminal blockage, some subconscious blockage in their brain that prevents them, from people that have had parents who argued about money all the time when they were kids, that imprinted a money is bad subconscious message in their brain, which would prevent them from becoming successful, even if they tried to use the law of attraction to attain a lot of money in a business. But once they started using some sort of sound frequency devices to unlock the blocks, then they were able to use the law of attraction much more successfully. So that's one thing that I think maybe is worth talking about. So with that being said, what do you want to say about the law of attraction? By the way, 830 is back in the queue, but I will let you talk about first before letting them on the air if they want to talk.
Okay. I absolutely completely agree. This chapter addresses the pitfalls of the law of attraction because it's exactly that. We have multiple frequencies that we are giving out on all different things. We have, like you said, the parents who said money was bad. We have that resonating out. We have, hey, we're trying to be in our heart, but we don't know what it really feels like to have money because we've never had money before. That's resonating out. Unless we get all of the resonant frequencies that we have, even about the thought of money or the idea of money or the idea of manifestation of something, I'm not good enough, I don't deserve this. If I did this bad thing, so that means I have karma. If we don't get all of that aligned energetically, we're not going to be able to manifest those things. I completely agree with the law of attraction, what they say that it is possible, but no one stresses the amount of work we have to do to make that happen for us. So this chapter in the book really tears it down on an energetic level, just showing all the different things we need to address. We need to address, hey, well, if I think I can make $20,000, but I can't make $100,000, we're never going to get the $100,000. If I'm used to living in a broken down house on, a bad part of town, I can't ever imagine myself or see myself living in a mansion. It's not going to happen. And I agree with what everyone says. When you put yourself in, I think Joe Dispenza says it best. I should have discovered this a long time ago, but where I'm living now, everyone in the world has listened to him, and I love his work. When you put yourself in that space of living it through the mind and living it as a reality, even before it's a reality, then you can change. The mind does not know the difference between how we keep repeating things from our childhood, from our past. We get stuck in those energy frequencies and we keep repeating them because of what we know. Well, if we can keep repeating any other energy frequency, it doesn't have to be something from the past, but energy frequency of seeing ourselves in a new house in the future, and it becomes real and tangible and you can feel it, well, absolutely, then your mind does not know the difference. It's still energy. You're creating that energy that is a thought form, which is still energy, and that can make it real. So just as though we are addressing everything energetically to negate things, we can address that energy positively. So yeah, this chapter on law of attraction absolutely says what you're saying. Everyone says, oh yeah, you can do it. Well, here's all the things that come into factor that you need to come into play, that you need to factor in and address before you're ever going to manifest with the law of attraction.
Thank you. Just so you know, well, actually, the caller dropped again, so I don't think we'll have to worry about him or her anymore. So just so you know, 13 minutes and 30 seconds on the live feed. If we have to go a little past 8 because you need to finish speaking or finish a thought or something, that's okay. It's just if anybody wants to hear you talk at that point, they'll have to call in 646-478-4747 because the live feed will be up in 13 minutes and 10 seconds at 8 o'clock. Okay. So let's try to keep this to that point. Maybe just 2-hour show just for the sake of all those people who have lousy attention spans also. But also, one more subject here, chapter 17, disappearing, becoming invisible. Now, this seems like one of those things that you would need, that one of those indigo crystal star children from China would be able to do, to become invisible. But we all have the ability. It's just that some of us, most of us, I should say, don't have the DNA codes active to be able to do it. And also, we believe it's not possible, so that in and of itself is also a hindrance. But simply believing that it's possible isn't enough. I mean, if believing it was possible would be enough, then we could do what Jedis did in Star Wars and move things with our hands and all that, telekinesis style, and that's not possible. I've been trying that for months with a little tiny...
I've been trying it too. I'm not there yet.
Yeah, I'm not there yet either. And it just goes to show you that simply believing is not enough. There has to be more to it. So this, I'm digressing a little bit here from the chapter in and of itself, but disappearing, becoming invisible, what's that all about?
So that is really speaking about our energetic signature. When I walk into a room, being an empath and developing that ability, I can feel how much, quote unquote, stuff a person is carrying around. Sometimes when I sit down next to someone, my energy field starts to process theirs and starts to clear it for them. So sometimes my body is working when I don't even choose it to be. So this chapter came out of an interesting experience with a medium. A medium was in, I won't name any names, she's a well-known person. She was doing an event, and we came in as blessing givers, a number of us. So there's a whole Oneness University that I've worked with a little bit in India, and they have this thing called Diksha, which is called initiation, but really it's a transference of, beautiful energy, healing energy, higher dimensional energy, whatever you want to call it. So she's going around the room, and she's, very accurately predicting and talking to people about their loved ones, about their issues, about whatever's going on with them. And so she says, sailboats. Does anyone in this room have a history of sailboats? And I think, well, my dad was always sailing, and I grew up in a backyard that was full of sailboats being repaired, so I raised my hand. So she comes over to me, and she tries to read me, and she's having a hard time. And I'm there in this room as a Diksha giver, as an energy conduit, basically. So my entire body at that point had been activated, and I was using it as a conduit to pull down higher dimensional energies into the room. So when she gets to me, she's trying to feel me, and she says, yeah, Joe, is this name? And she picks a name, and I'm like, no, I'm sorry, I don't know anyone. Then the lady to the left of me is like, yeah, that's my friend or husband. So then she comes back to me, and she says, yeah, spiders. Spiders, you have this thing with spiders? I'm like, no, I don't. And the woman behind me is like, oh, gosh, yeah, we have spiders. This hotel we're staying is infiltrated with them. And so she basically turns to me and says, well, you're just closed yourself off when I got to you. And so I wasn't going to say in front of her audience that is exactly opposite the case. That is completely opposite, because I am just an open channel at this point. I came here to be this energy facilitator. That's what I'm doing. That is why you can't read me. My energy signature at that point, since I was flowing through all of this energy in my vessel, it just became not about me. Like the self was gone. My vessel was a conduit for higher dimensional energies. And that's how, disappearing. As we do this work to awaken and to become our source, multidimensional consciousness, our own personal imprints of the things that we insist are right and know that we are these things and we are the way we are and I choose to be this, or I'm having this big problem, all of those things start to melt away. Of course, you do a lot of work to get rid of a lot of them, but it still melts away, and you become a conduit for the higher dimensional energies to come through. And once that higher dimensional energies come through into this third density, it can make change because it touches everything else on third dimension. It brings that higher dimensional frequency through to everyone and everything on this plane. So that is what I'm actually referring to when I say disappearing. Your personal energy signature becomes lighter and lighter and lighter and disappears to the point, if you're maybe working with energy or any of that, where it becomes invisible. I'm assuming Daryl Anka, his personal energy signature disappears when Bashar comes through. I'm sure also that his personal energy signature gets lighter and lighter and lighter, and it's disappearing because he's channeling Bashar, who's a higher vibrational creature at all times, or most of the time. So I'm assuming it's affecting him at all times. So that's what I talk about disappearing. So when I have someone sit next to me or a seat away, I can tell whether they're a lighter energy signature or a heavier energy signature. And sometimes, I want to go sit next to that person who's a lighter energy signature because they're disappearing, and it's a lot easier for my body to be around it. And then you're living less in your third density reality, and you have more of that higher density come through. So the choices are coming from that higher place. Most likely they have more heart energy integrated with the higher density coming through, and it's a much more pleasurable experience too. So that's the work we do. That's the work. That's what I call ascension. That personal resonant frequency lightens and disappears, and you're becoming more aligned with your complete higher and multidimensional experience of who we each individually are.
Thank you very much. And let's try this one more time. Area code 830. You are on the air. What's your name? Where are you from? What's your question? 6 minutes, 15 seconds on the live feed. Hello. Area code 830. You are on the air. You had a question mark next to your number, or are you just listening? Going once, going twice. I hear my name, my voice echoing in the background there. Going twice. Okay, as they say in Japan, sayonara. All right. I don't know what that's all about, but I guess they were just listening. So,
okay.
All right. Time for one more subject. 5 minutes, 43 seconds on the live feed. A couple chapters here talking about something called the Biofield. Now, a lot of people would say biology, that's a science that we really shouldn't be obsessing too much about because it's more of a religion. Biology is, it takes away from the consciousness science that we should all be talking about. The metaphysical science biology does, and a lot of it is could be considered disinformation to some degree. So what exactly is Biofield from the perspective that you are referring to?
So from my perspective, Biofield is all of the different densities that we are engaged with in our vessels. So we have a third dimensional body, we have an emotional body, we have a mental body. When we're working, we have the chakras, all of and a couple 100,000 nadis in the body that are energy centers. So it all makes the integrative whole. And so when I'm helping people or have been helping people feel energy and learn to understand how to help heal themselves and how to live in a higher vibrational energy, because everyone is feeling a lot better when they do, the biofield is more like the integrative whole. I don't care if anyone knows where any of their nadis are. I don't care if you have one chakra that's more open than the other. Work through that one. I think when you're very specifically working on healing different maladies or diseases or things like that, you might need a little bit more specific information, but I also believe it's way more intuitive than that. I don't go in and say, I'm going to work on someone's, emotional body right now. The higher knowingness that comes along with the energy work, the higher intuitive that is already built in, takes me to whatever that person needs, whether it's on emotional, physical, mental, doesn't matter. There's a higher intelligence to all of it. So very specifically when I use Biofield, I'm using it as an integrative whole. I really don't like to break things down because then you're getting into the technical analytical mind again and you're trying to fix something through whatever your thought processes are. And when we surrender our thought processes to the higher divine self that already knows, like we were talking about the Akashic records, there's part of you that already knows exactly what has to happen, exactly what's the right scenario, what's the right response for any given situation. And when we get out of our minds and we just let that higher version of us through, you already know it. You don't need to go, oh yeah, let's use biology and work on the gallbladder. Let's let our higher intelligence tell us really whether that needs to be what happens or not. I haven't experienced one of my first awakening moments when I really started to understand what was going on, that you have access to all this information. I was with a spiritual group meditating. We get into meditation pretty easily and push the mind aside and go, oh, let's see who we can go visit or what we can explore. So I knew I'd spoken to my mom that earlier before I had gone into meditation. She was getting a cold, or she said she was getting a little ill or a cold. So I went and I, showed up where she was and I blasted her with energy. And lo and behold, the next day she didn't get sick. So I talked to her about it and I said, hey, what's going on with this? And she said, oh, no, I just got better. It had nothing to do with anything. And I said, well, I think I might have had something to do with it. And she's like, no. If you really have a problem, go visit your aunt. She's really sick. And that's all she told me. And I knew that my aunt had some blood disorders in the past, but I didn't know anything about it. That was decades ago. And that was all. So I went in and I went into meditation. I went up into the consciousness realms, or the closer to consciousness realms. And I visited my aunt. I got in touch with her signature. And all I got was that her colon wasn't working, that she was toxic, and there were all these heavy metals in her colon that was blocking the functioning of her body, and that was causing her illness. So nothing to do, I thought, of the blood disorder. So I went back, and the next day I told my mom, I'm like, okay, go tell aunt, or our aunt, I'm not going to say names, that this is what's going on. And my mother practically dropped the phone because what my aunt had told her, but she hadn't told me, was that she had not gone to the bathroom for 3 weeks. So I didn't know a blood disorder or anything else, but when you tune into that, you have to let the field guide you. The field will tell you exactly what you need to know. So I said, you need to eat cilantro and parsley to clean out these heavy metals. Well, it turns out she was having some kind of chemotherapy, which I didn't know, that was giving her the toxic heavy metals. So all I'm saying is don't get caught on biology. Don't get caught on not being consciousness. because it has all the information. And when we tap into that, we live our lives from that place. And it's a lot more effective and a lot better place to be.
Thank you very much for that. Clarifying what Biofield is and all that. So that being said, the live feed just ran out. So I guess I'll bring this show to an end, and I'll do it by telling you the same thing that I tell all of my guests. Is always the most emotional part of every single show for me. But Milena, I love listening to you. You had some very, very interesting stories to tell, and I do hope that when I get this interview up, and I will upload it to YouTube and post it on other social media sites so other people will have a chance to listen to it, I do hope that you will soon have more of a household name after that, and people will buy your books and all that and learn all the great things that they have to learn from you. If you ever need like a radio source or something like that to get out because you have a message to deliver, you're more than welcome to give me a buzz, and I can give you like maybe a 30-minute to an hour special. But as far as me contacting you or any of my other previous guests goes, I've always made a resolution from the first day I started doing the show that the fairest, most impartial, and most informative way for me to do this radio show would be to try to get as many different people on my show as I possibly can before giving any one specific guest double dips, because I felt that is the best way to expose the nature of reality. So if I don't call you to come on my show again, please understand that's only because I need to give thousands of other fascinating individuals a chance to have some on my show, and I'm going to be giving
No worries. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Yes, I loved having you on. This was fascinating to say the least, and you are interesting to say the least. So have a good night. Namaste, and wish you luck on your future endeavors.
Namaste. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye now.
Bye.
All right, folks, that is the end of this show. I will be having Elena Kapolnik, not next Wednesday, but in 10 days, Saturday following this upcoming Saturday, I am going to be in Bermuda for a week with my parents, who are willing to take me. I had to give them $150 to take the trip, but they are willing to take me because they get 2 trips to Bermuda as part of some lottery selection thing twice a year, and I'm entitled to go with them if I gave them $150. So they're taking me, and I'm going to be spending some quality time with them in an island paradise in the Atlantic Ocean. So I'll be in Bermuda. I won't be doing a show next Wednesday, but I'll have Elena Kapolnik on next Saturday, from this upcoming Saturday, and then I'll go back to Wednesday, regular schedule again after that. So that's the end of this show. Andrew Fisher, namaste, signing off from Nectar Reality Radio. Enjoy the rest of your trek to infinite consciousness, everybody.